I feel like different when it comes to your preferred styles of going on dates sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I think we should start off. Actually, you know what? Can you just tell this? Wait. Because he knows the story already,
Tell
right?
us the story.
Tell us about
the Valentine's.
I am
wait,
in
you
the
know
inner
about this?
circle.
Yeah, bro, we know.
Share before we get into that game. Do you mind sharing about the Valentine's Day? Was it last Valentine's Day?
Last Valentine's. Our
Last
first
Valentine's
Valentine's together.
Well,
Yeah. What happened?
well, let me, because
Go ahead.
I
Just
feel
go ahead.
like, all right, so our first Valentine's Day, and I'm racking my brain. I'm like, what can I do to make this special? I am a huge Goonies fanatic. The movie.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Most people just
Pirates,
forget about it in
all
life,
that.
but I love it. And so in the movie, they find this little map and on the back there's like little notes and anyways, I'm like, I'm going to do a Goonies adventure. All right?
Scavenger hunt.
So we're going to do a
I don't think you've heard this
scavenger
story.
hunt.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I have about the Valentine. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. I think I told you.
So I'm like racking up my brain. I'm like, how can I make this a scavenger hunt? And so I pick out, I get on Google Map and I pick out all these different like places. I'm like, we can go here, we can go here. Then I'm like coming up with like riddles and clues. How do you get from here to there? And I was like, let's make a theme out of it. This is like, we're going for One-Eyed Willie's rich stuff,
Yeah.
And so it was pretty cool because I had it all coming back to the pirate ship that's at Millennium Park. The little kids,
Yeah.
the big pirate ship that the kids play
Lake
on
Charles, yeah.
in Lake Charles. And I was like, that's where I'm going to
That's
have
it.
the rich stuff.
Yeah.
And so I bought this tiny little
Treasure box.
treasure chest. And like I ended up getting like at that point, like I didn't buy anything, but I put
Oh, it
in
was a
like
coupon.
one of those
For a
coupons.
massage.
Okay. Yeah.
For it was not like me giving her massage.
yeah.
It was a coupon for like to go get a massage
Yeah.
somewhere. And so and I bought these like little vessels that you can put like little notes in.
That he literally buried all over Lake Charles.
the
No,
night before
come
Lake
on.
Charles,
Oh
I
my
went
God.
out and I
He was
was
like, I'm going all
I
out.
was in the park with like
So
I
the
had, like,
residents of Lake Charles like, who's this guy with a shovel?
You
Yeah.
guys like walking around burying
I had
stuff.
this little screwdriver. I'm making like little pilot holes in, and I'm like shoving it down. I was like, can't put it too far. You gotta find it.
Oh my gosh.
So, but it was,
Dedication.
and it was just trying to get the placement right because I was like, I can't put the wrong one in the wrong place.
Yeah.
But I wanted to stop at like 6 or 7 different places, and it's like, how can I incorporate having dinner? And I don't know. It was a lot of thought. The treasure map. Now, I went and got like resume paper, and I printed out my map on both sides, and then I took fire and lit the edges.
Come on.
So it was
That-
like burnt edges on it. And then for one of the
Wild.
clues was you had to have 2 maps in the burnt holes in it.
It was
had
elaborate.
to line up.
So elaborate.
to
I'm like, how did you even think about
Yes.
all
Dude,
these
you're creative.
details?
I give
to
you that.
give like one of
Yeah.
the locations, you had
Yeah.
to line it up just right. And then I crumpled them up for like, I don't know, an hour, just keep on. So it was like old and it had like,
He dyed it with
it was so
coffee,
good.
so it was brown.
Oh
it was just
Yeah.
the whole
my
thing.
I wish I'd kept it. I was so, well, there.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, knowing all the thought that went in behind it,
Yes.
so let's like, how did it actually go? Like, what
Okay,
was-
I have to live with this for the rest of
this
my
is
life.
funny.
I know. Everyone talks about it. So we had been dating for
Oh, I guess.
like 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my idea of a Valentine's is like dinner, roses, just your typical
Yeah.
thing. Okay. I was not expecting this. So I come over Saturday morning. He's like, I have this thing planned. He gives me this envelope. It's a treasure map. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
And he's like, we're going on a scavenger hunt. And I'm like all day? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I got to put work in.
Yeah. And let it be known, that day it was slightly misting
oh, no,
outside.
It was
and
freezing.
cold.
It was freezing and raining. And I had to figure out all these clues. There were so many and they were so elaborate. And I would read them. And like every clue I got to, I would get more and more irritated.
Oh.
And I'm just like,
It's like, what's next?
yes. And I was like, when is this ever going to end?
And during driving between, I had like adventure, like
Yes.
music playing, like Pirates of the Caribbean style.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
music.
That's
I was
hilarious.
so into it, and I was like, man, she's definitely gonna appreciate the amount of work that I'm putting into this. I mean, I would love it, so of course she's gonna love it.
Yeah.
I'm eating my
That's
words.
a lot of thought.
Because if you remember when we did Rain and like I was up on stage and we talked about like dating and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And I remember saying, if he can't plan a date, how is he going to plan your life, your future? And now I meet this guy and he like
And he
planned
did.
it in
Yeah.
detail. And I was like, well, I mean, I said that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got irritated and we had dinner planned that night. That's all I knew, is that we had dinner that night. And we got halfway done and I was like, I don't really want to finish this.
Yeah.
And
So-
we got to the house and like he was like kind of upset and I was like, I think I'm just gonna go to the house. So we didn't even go to dinner
Yeah.
that night. I just went home and I was like, all right, have a good day.
Have a good day. See you later.
Yeah, it was.
Talk
it
to
was
you later.
We're still trying. I definitely didn't take into consideration what I had learned so far about her, and I planned it out around my likes, my wants, and I just assumed that she would appreciate it and maybe just enjoy it just for the sake of enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we got to a point during that day where it was almost like we couldn't save the day.
Yeah.
We got to that point.
Yeah.
Too
of,
far
like,
gone.
We needed
Yeah.
the time apart because us just being around each other even longer throughout the day.
Yeah.
We weren't able to fix it in the moment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and my family continues to give me crap about it. Listen, I appreciate it
talking about it
now.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny because I just, the more that I get to know like Nathan, because I mean, we haven't really,
yeah.
you're kind of new
Yeah.
to the,
Right.
area
Yeah.
and everything. I just think it's such a representation of your personalities because your personalities are so
Yeah.
different,
Yes.
but they blend together so well. It's just
100.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just so
And now
cool.
that you hear that story and now we know Nathan, we're like, that's Nathan.
yeah.
Nathan.
yeah.
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 Well, I think, it's interesting. We definitely know that God brought us together.
Yeah.
There's not a doubt in our minds. So it's interesting trying to discover like God's plan and how like He knew this would work.
Yeah.
And how she kind of calms me down and I kind of pick her up. Kind
Yeah.
of bring stuff out of her, and where I may normally just go 100 all the time, and she's like, "Hey, let's just have a chill day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where we do
Yeah.
nothing."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably like, as far as his character, who he was, I loved everything about him. But that was one thing where I was like, he's a golden retriever. Like,
Labrador.
I didn't know what that was. She's like,
Yes.
"You're a golden retriever. No
Yeah.
offense."
Yeah.
What?
and I'm like super
Is
calm.
that like typical for you, or that's
No.
like out of the norm?
That
like,
was
this is
totally out of the norm.
shocking?
And so it took me a while to get used to it because I was like, I needed to stop dating my type because
Yeah.
it was not healthy. And so when I met him, he was like perfect, but so much energy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
can we calm it down a bit? Like, I'm tired. you know?
Yeah.
But now I love that about him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. It's
So.
a good balance.
Yeah. I want to ask that. I think that was a good what you just mentioned of how we go through these dating seasons and we date our type, it doesn't work. How did you make that shift? Like what was the how did you move from that?
So I learned, I'm a really big like psychology nut. Like I will read books and books and books and like learn everything about the brain and human behavior.
Yeah.
So I learned that your type is basically like a trauma response. So what that is like, just to give a little background of myself, I have some abandonment issues. And so I would always date people who would abandon me and I would try to fix it. I'm
Right.
like, if I date this one person, maybe they won't leave. And then I just kept doing that cycle over and over. And then
Yeah.
eventually I'm just like, I got to stop. I got to stop this.
Yeah.
So that's how I learned
That's
it.
crazy because, you were kind of talking about how you like knew that it was God to
Yeah.
be together. And one thing we were going to ask is like, how did you guys meet? And then how did you know like this was from the Lord? Like this relationship was supposed to happen?
Yeah. So I don't like sharing how we met because I don't like the stigma around it. Is we met on Bumble,
Okay.
a dating app,
Yeah.
which I've been divorced for like 7 years now. So at the time, it was like 6 years. So like 3 of those years, I was like definitely on dating apps all the time, and then
Yeah.
eventually I just kind of gave it up.
Yeah.
And then I just kept like every 6 months, be like, oh, I just want to get on there to see what's on there, what kind of guys are on there. And so I would not, I would not date anyone who had like this checklist of like, he had to be a Jesus freak, he had to serve in church, he had to do all these things. And I'm like, I'm not going to find that on a dating app.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was hoping I would find somebody in person organically. So I would go on, and then I saw his profile and it talked about Jesus and how all this thing. And I'm like,
Come on, it's just for Bumble.
let me just swipe right.
Yeah.
And then I deleted the app. And so
After you swipe right?
yes.
So it's like, what if he
No.
matched and you're like, oh, I don't know.
I think she deleted it the next day. Or
yeah,
something like
Wow.
that.
I was
Yeah.
only on there for like a couple hours, and I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm done.
Oh, wow.
This is stupid. And then like a few months later, I got back on it again, and I saw his profile again, and I was like, let me swipe right again. Like he
Yeah.
was the only one I swiped right on, and he had got on the same day, so he messaged me before I was able to delete it.
Oh.
And that's how.
So, okay, so
Yeah.
the first time she swiped right, did it notify you because she deleted the app? Okay, because
No,
I was like,
no.
what if you swipe right
Yeah,
and then
if
you're
you would
like,
have seen that, like, wait, where'd she
ghosted.
go?
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh, wait,
Hey,
she's back.
You're
Like,
supposed
what's-
to message me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the thing with Bumble is the woman is supposed to message.
Of course.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But so my side of that was, I was in Church of the King, and I'm just like oddly surprised that I couldn't find like someone to connect with. You would think that there would be enough single people in a church or something.
Yeah.
You can find somebody with, a good godly woman, and there just wasn't that there. And so I'm like, well, you know what? I said, God's just gonna have to put her in my way. I'm done with these apps.
Yeah.
And so I got off the apps for a long time, and so I was like, I'm not gonna do it. God's just gonna have to put her right in front of me. And then one of my friends who was at the church, and he was like, yeah, well, I met my wife through Match.com. And I was like, oh, yeah? And he was like, yeah, you should give it a try. And so I was like, all right, I'll get on Match. Oh, I hated Match.
Yeah.
It was just,
Yeah.
So old school.
it just didn't work for me. And so, I tried like, was it Christian Mingle?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
Christians
gosh,
only.
that is a dried up well.
wow.
It is. And so, not that there's bad people on it. It's just the system is so broken. And it was like, from my experience, it was a lot of pay for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I was just being cheap. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, like,
Hey, just
Yeah.
meet somebody.
Subscriptions.
Yeah.
Like, it's
And
for the
so,
birds.
yeah, I got on Bumble, and I think you had swiped right on me the first time before I started deleting them, before I deleted all those apps. And so I think we both kind of, within the same amount of time, got back onto them, because it was shortly after I downloaded Bumble that we ended up connecting.
Yeah. So that's almost coincidence,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you can call it coincidence or you can call it God.
We,
you know?
Yeah.
there was a good amount of
Oh, there was so many.
coincidences,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
See, when
Yeah.
there's enough coincidences, you're like, okay, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something
Like,
is
There's a lot of
happening.
coincidences.
Yeah, he knew
there.
I needed lots of confirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you talked about looking at the profiles, the Jesus list and
Mm-hmm.
checklist. Like, so did you go like search them on Facebook and like stalk
Facebook
them?
stalking.
No.
Yes, she did.
Oh,
let me
you
finish.
got caught.
Let me finish.
Come on.
First of all, we had a conversation. So usually on Bumble, you have like however long of a conversation you want, But we exchanged 2 messages, and he immediately said, "Here's my number. I want to talk to you." So I gave him.
He's like, when you know,
was
you
putting that
know,
out there. I'm
right?
like, I'm
Like-
gonna toss her the ball.
Let's
See what
go,
she does
bro.
with it.
Yeah.
Like, here's my number.
It's
You
Bumble,
reach out
bro.
to
Balls
me
in
if
your
you like
court
this.
now.
Yeah. So it was a Friday, and I had texted him, "Hey, this is Amber from Bumble," and then like that was it. And then so that evening, I was dropping my kids off with their dad, and I got this random phone number from Sulphur, and I have a Texas number, so I know if it's a Louisiana number, I have to answer it.
Yeah.
So I answered it, and it was him. And he was like, "Hey, he basically said, you're too good of a woman for me to just text, 'Hey, what's up? I'm gonna call you.'" And so we talked for like almost an hour.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
that's
coming
in the gym
strong.
parking lot.
Yeah.
Wait,
I thought it was gonna be
this
a quick
is like your
phone call or
first
something.
conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. So I
He's
was
like,
like,
I'm just
I got to
going
do
in.
Yeah.
something different here.
Yeah.
I can't-
That sold
You
me
know.
100%.
Wow.
Because no one
that's
does
so
that
cool.
anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
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 It was
so-
like, hey, what's up? What you doing right now? Like,
Yeah. No, I hate
no,
that.
no, exactly. So
Yeah,
So it was like a good conversation. It wasn't like one of those, hey, what you doing? You know,
No,
like-
we
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
into some stuff like what our hobbies. We were actually both on the way. Well, he was already at the gym. I was on the way to my gym, so like we kind of talked about
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and it was just great. It was a great conversation.
yeah.
wow, that's really
So
cool.
did you go stalk her profile after that? Like, is she who
I
she
didn't-
says she is?
He's
I don't
not
think
a
I know-
huge-
Did I not know your last name at that
Probably
point?
not. I don't really give that out.
I,
You know?
I don't really get on Facebook that much. And
Yeah,
and
he's
stuff
not
like
really
that.
a social media person.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And I couldn't really find him because he's not a social media person.
Well,
so
you said that there were the other Nathan Cooper. You said
I Googled him. I Googled him.
Oh.
And apparently there's a Nathan Cooper who killed his girlfriend and shoved her in a fridge.
She's like,
I know.
look, is this you? Because
I was like,
yeah. She was
God.
like, "Do you have a big fridge or something?" I was
this
like,
would be
"I
a
do."
way different podcast topic right now
Yes.
if that was the
Dude,
case.
yes.
thankfully it was
Murder
not
She
him.
So,
Yeah.
we'd be on what's that? The file show,
Cold Case Files?
Cold Case Files.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Like, Amber,
Unsolved
so
mysteries.
walk us through how you knew your boyfriend was the killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully
That's
not.
crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she was
Stay off of Bumble, serial killers.
yeah.
Yeah, she was trying to
Crazy.
search me out. She found the wrong Nathan, huh?
I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I'm all for
I don't
it.
blame you. I would too. I would search the profiles. It just tells you a lot about somebody.
Oh,
what they're
100%.
what they're willing to post about themselves, number one.
Yes,
And
there were so
then-
many times where someone would recommend someone to me, and I would go look them up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you know, they occasionally go to church, they love Jesus," but then I would get on their profile and it'd be like so much profanity, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
"What? No."
Yeah.
So yeah,
The
Well,
evidence.
yeah, I think at this point, you might as well embrace if it's an option. You know, embrace the technology as far as if it's available to look and see how someone's representing themselves online. Might as well take that moment.
Of
to
course.
see,
I mean, it's a window.
You know.
Yeah.
And then if they're not online, great.
Yeah.
You know, even better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So you guys started dating after that, like almost immediately. Like it was.
Well, hold on now.
No, there's more to the story.
there's more.
So Nathan comes in strong, but we still haven't got there
Trust
yet.
me, I what would you say? Like I'm a
Oh, he's so
I'm a
romantic.
puppy dog. I love love.
Yes.
So
Love, yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to be like
Oh, he was
instantly.
ready.
I wanted to be in a relationship with this woman.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I could feel it.
Yeah.
But
I was
Amber-
very hesitant because at that point, I know previously I was like, oh, I want to find a godly husband. But I had got to a point where I was like, I'm good. You know,
Yeah.
my life was good. I had a good job. You know, everything was going great. I was, you know, in church. Like, everything was great. And I was so comfortable. And I, like, this guy comes around and, like,
making
he's-
waves.
yeah. I was like,
Waves.
I wasn't ready. Like, I wasn't
Yeah.
ready for that. And so I was really hesitant, and especially with everything I'd gone through. And so it took a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's good because we just talked about, so this is like coming off the heels of our Citizens Night
Yeah.
message where we talked about dating, you know, and everyone's so concerned about like having to find somebody, but I was, you know, we were talking about like if it's from the Lord that you will not be able to escape that person. So like even though you're more hesitant than he was, like if it's from the Lord, like there's no way you're not gonna, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's
Like,
exactly how
either
I
he's
felt.
gonna change your heart or, you know.
Yeah, that's
so.
actually what happened because, you know, I was very hesitant and I was very reserved, and he was the opposite. So I was a little kind of like taken aback. And so, you know, there would just be times where I'm like, I don't know, you know, I don't know. And so it was like
We went on
a month and a half.
month and a half before, and get this. So for don't let me get my timelines mixed up. I actually sat down one day and I wrote an old school note like, "Will you be my girlfriend?"
Okay.
Yes.
Check
Yes or
George Strait,
no.
bro.
And if no, I gave this long list. I was like, if it's no, you need to be doing a belly flop off of the
Oh my
and like
gosh,
singing the
please.
Star
Yeah.
Spangled Banner.
That's awesome.
You know, if no. and I don't even think you said yes.
Well, no.
at that point.
She like circled both, like undecided.
She's like,
No,
maybe.
I remember because it was right before the Mexico mission trip.
No,
Yes.
that was your reply.
Let me finish.
Oh no,
Let me finish. So
you're right. I'm getting it all confused.
yeah.
That's
So
right.
he gave it to me. We were sitting on the couch, and he gave it to me, and I was like,
Another scavenger hunt. No, I'm just kidding.
She's like, get out of my house.
I was like, it was another elaborate thing, and I was like, oh gosh. And I told him, I was like, can I just think about it? Like that was my answer to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, that's fine,
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to go on this mission trip. Let me just pray about it. And, when I get back, I'll probably have an answer for you. So
Yeah, that was a little bit of like inside. I was a little bit taken back because I felt like I'm really putting myself out there.
Yeah.
And I feel this great connection. Why wouldn't you want to be dating me?
Yeah, all these thoughts.
Yeah, and but I can appreciate her having the courage to say, "Well, hold up, let me really think about this," rather than just instantly just saying, "Yeah."
Yeah.
We hadn't had a single argument up until that point, and so in my mind there was like no reason. I'm like, are we not already?
Yeah.
Like we just haven't.
This was supposed to be
said
fun,
it yet.
like-
yeah. And she's like, let me think about it. So I was kind of taken back, but at that point I was like, well, I'm just determined just to be better, just to, maybe take a second and re-examine myself so far. Like, where have I not been 100%? Like, not I'm saying truthful, but 100% in the moment with her,
Yeah.
So I got a chance to re-examine like how I was approaching our dating, when she said that.
And the reason why I was so like strongly convicted to think about it, pray about it, is because at that point I was looking at dating as, this is a lifelong commitment.
Yeah.
It really is.
And, apart from your decision to serve God, I think who you choose to marry is the most influential decision you can make in your entire life.
Yeah.
Like that decision could follow you into eternity because he has so much influence over me. I have so much influence over him. And so I was like, I have to be sure that this is the person, because I was not going to get into another relationship and it just be toxic or, just nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was very intentional about that.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, no, I can appreciate her views on that too. Up until I had been in relationships before, I previously married before, and it was never. Our marriage now isn't comparable to anything that I've had before because of the way that Amber, the way that she views this marriage, the way that she represents herself, and her relationship with God, and how she respects the idea of a husband leads. I didn't have that nearly in any other relationship. It was very much nearly an independent, like female independent type of relationship. So I appreciated that, and I appreciated her taking the time to be 100% sure.
Yeah.
And even though I was super eager to be, that she could pump the brakes when we're dating and like take control of the situation and be like, we need to be 100% sure. Because at the time I didn't realize, it was going to be like this now where, she's like, you are the leader of this household. You need to start making decisions kind of
Yeah.
thing, And so, that's good that she took the time in the beginning to vet me.
Yeah.
No, absolutely,
No,
absolutely, and I think that's wisdom,
Yeah.
because a lot of people now, and a lot of young people, they just looking to engage in a relationship. They don't
Yeah.
care who they're with, or they're dating for the wrong reasons or things like that, and they're not stopping to for those pauses,
Yeah.
for those moments. So okay,
Yeah.
you need to step back. I need to step back because I'm not dating to date. I'm
Yeah.
dating to marry. So I think that's really good advice.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so you're dating now. You went through this whole
Oh,
thing.
Did you tell? Well, she didn't tell you about like she eventually came back and like she wrote this whole note and she was
Okay,
like,
okay. So the table was turned, huh?
Yeah, when I came back from Mexico, I was like, all right.
Okay.
Gonna return the favor.
Yeah, so I
Return
wrote
the
the note.
gesture.
I'll give him one love note.
that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like my
He was like,
happiest
this is
He's
day.
like,
from the
yeah.
I
Lord.
literally was like, yeah,
Go show all the boys, like,
yeah.
she loves me.
You know, and maybe it's because she was like, well, let me think about it. It made it that sweeter when
Yeah.
she was like,
Yeah.
okay, let's
Yeah.
do it. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And then, like, after the moment of waiting and then getting that, it made it that much more special.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now you're dating.
Yes,
Yeah,
now.
now we're dating.
So
Okay.
fast forward.
Okay, and just the type of people y'all are, y'all Christians, y'all believers and stuff like that. So I'm sure you had, I don't want to say barriers, but you had safeguards, boundaries for
yeah.
yourself. Okay, to remain pure, and that way God can bless your marriage, and just to stay holy. As who you are. And so share some of those safeguards that you had through the dating period.
Yeah, just to like help keep your relationship pure.
Yeah, definitely. So that was a conversation we had on our second date. So before we even started dating, I did not want to date anyone who was not going to be celibate until marriage, because that was something that I had decided for myself, and that was like a non-negotiable.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I was not going to date anyone
That's
who was
good.
not going to be celibate. So on our second date, I approached him. We were at a really nice dinner, and I was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I'm choosing to be celibate until marriage. If you're not into that, that's totally fine." Because I had dated so many people who were like, "That's not for me."
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, bye.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, if it's not for you, I totally understand. It's not a big deal, but this is something I've decided for myself.
Yeah.
So I just want to know your thoughts on it. And he was like, okay. And I was
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So like we had decided on our second date. So before we even started dating, we were both going to be celibate
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
Right
marriage.
off the bat.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was almost like a sense of relief for me. That decision had already been made. It's not going to be we find ourselves in a
Yeah.
situation where we have to make a choice, and you've already got hormones happening.
Right.
Right.
I imagine it's hard to get out of that moment if you haven't already made that choice.
Yeah.
So the fact that we were just out in the open and just at a pier or something like that,
Yeah.
and she's like, "All right, this is a situation. I'm celibate," and I'm just like,
Can breathe.
one less
Yeah.
choice I have to make,
Yeah.
and it reaffirms everything that we had talked about on the first date, which we went into lengthy detail on our beliefs. And how we view Christianity and where we stand on different topics. And
Yeah, we had lots of deep conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I like what you said too, kind of like it just relieved the pressure, because intimacy, I feel like, is such a pressure in relationships if you don't discuss it, because then you're like, well, I don't know where this
don't know
person
what they're
stands.
thinking.
And then you
Yeah.
have no practical boundaries, like when you're together on a date or whatever, like, hey, we're not going to do this because I don't want to be tempted in any certain way. And that's one thing that I am so big on, is like, if you can't have that type of conversation soon after like, okay, I like this person and I want to date this person, but they have to be able to agree to this. If they won't have that conversation with you, that's your first, like, okay, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
definitely,
Like, if they're
definitely.
not even willing to talk about that, which is a huge part of a relationship,
Yeah.
then you shouldn't even, in my view,
Yeah,
you shouldn't
absolutely.
consider them.
No, not
Right.
at
You know?
all. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Communication is huge. Like
Yeah.
he knows that.
Yeah.
I love to talk. So communication is huge. And another thing is that, like, if you don't set boundaries for yourself, you're going to fall to their boundaries, and their
Yeah.
boundaries might not be as good as
Right.
you want them to be.
Yeah.
So you got to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every relationship's different. So like you had the boundary of like, we're going to be celibate till marriage, but every relationship's different in the fact of like things that they allow. Like some people don't kiss until they get married, or they don't hold hands, or they don't like, was there any
Just
like
as a
things
safeguard.
like that where you're like, when we're together, like this is not going to happen? Or was it just kind of like an understanding?
No, we definitely had some. So like one big one was like the bedrooms off limit. We
Yeah.
had no reason to go into a bedroom. If we were to watch TV, it was in a living room.
Yeah.
Another one, let's see. No laying down together. So like why do you need to lay
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
together? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do you have any that? I'm trying to think of any other ones. I think a lot of them were.
Well, I mean, we didn't try to get into like
Like
moments
this and
where
not this.
like
Yeah,
and
yeah,
this
you
and-
kinda-
Yeah.
we're crossing boundaries
Right.
of just even touching each other, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
And a lot of it just
try
kind
to
of fell back on, y'all both knew where you
agreement,
stood.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we knew we were going to be celibate, so we didn't really get into situations
Yeah.
where we might,
Yeah.
mess
Yeah.
it up. Yeah.
That's good.
Also too, like I know some people when they're in relationships, they're very emotional, they get attached too early and things like that, and that causes them to avoid red flags. Was
Oh,
that maybe
100.
a thing, or was you just kind of always on the alert, dating, because
Yeah.
you're trying to see the character of the other person to make sure
Yeah.
that they're the fit, that they're the helper that is suitable for you that God made. So
Yes.
was it hard to see red flags because of attachment, or was you just you was dating with that in mind?
And we're not assuming there was red flags.
No.
in the
Yeah,
relationship,
yeah.
Definitely
but
No, we actually just had this conversation not too long ago. So
we're still working on it.
Yeah.
well, you guys have been married how long?
3 months.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so I lost my thought.
Red
What was-
flags.
Oh,
Are you too
red flag.
emotional?
Okay, so
Yeah.
because I was so intentional, I am a very logical person. I'm not really an emotional person.
Same.
So I look at things logically, and I also, no offense to anybody who does this, but I think girls who get into relationships and make their boyfriend their identity is so cringy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did not want to be that person.
Yeah.
So, the Bible says to guard your heart. So that I definitely did that. And literally, as soon as we got married, there was like a flip that switched. And now I'm like obsessed with him. I don't even want him to leave the room.
Yeah.
I'm like, where are you going? When are you
Yeah.
coming back?
Yeah.
Like, so now, like during dating, it was very intentional time
Yeah.
for me to make decisions, lifelong decisions. And now that we're married, I can
You're
be
like,
all
I
obsessed
don't
about
care
him.
anymore. Yeah.
No, and she told me, she's like, it's gonna be like that. I may seem distant now, but as we start dating more, I'll get more attached to you, but like things will be really different if we're gonna get married. And in my mind, I feel like I've never really been like that. I love, so
Yeah.
of course I'm gonna fall in love
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
But it was almost jarring to
Yeah.
see, to have it happen once we got married. It was
I wanted to go everywhere he went.
yeah.
That's how I am. I'm always like, can you just put me in your pocket?
She's still that way.
Yes.
She's
Yeah.
still that way.
If we're sitting on the couch, I have to touch him or like my toes.
Yeah.
Or just,
Jeez.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel for you, Nathan.
No, that's funny.
Because it's good sometimes, but it's not good all the time. I'm
Yeah.
picking with you.
Well, like he
Don't
gets
test me with a good
he gets
time.
really hot. So like if I'm like touching, he's like, oh, I'm so hot. Can you
That's
get off
how
me?"
he is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's a furnace.
I'm
Yeah,
not.
or like,
Oh my
like,
God.
like if you like have skin to skin, you start sticking. I can't stand
Yeah.
that. I cannot
Yeah.
stand that,
Sticky. Ugh.
Ugh, he hates
Yeah.
that.
dude. Like,
But I mean, it's we still like getting the spats and little
Yeah.
here and there.
Yeah.
And then I think another thing that didn't. I think that I came in with the wrong mindset as because I is super optimistic. Like nothing can go wrong.
Head in the
could this
clouds.
Yeah.
Rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
Oh man, like in fact, I was just shocked the first time that we had a fight. I'm like,
How can
I
this
looked
be?
at her. I'm like,
Did
are
this
we
just
fighting?
happen?
Yeah.
It's like, what is happening? And she's like, yeah. She's like, this is gonna happen.
This happens. Yeah.
And props to Amber. She has been very mature and had a lot of foresight for this relationship. Where I went in it kind of immature. I was viewing our relationship, like I said, through rose-colored glasses. It's not always going to be gold. But the problem was I just couldn't see that.
Right.
I was so distracted and, oh, Amber's so beautiful and she's so chill, she's
Yeah.
so cool,
Yeah.
Cool.
this is awesome. This is great, and she had the foresight to be like, we're going to have hard times. It's okay if we get into arguments. It doesn't mean that we're breaking up. And this is
Yeah.
almost reassuring, And we're still getting into spats, and she's like, "We're not breaking up.
Yeah.
You're stuck with me." So I'm like,
It's
No, well,
gonna happen.
my view is we don't fight like toxic yelling. Like
Yeah.
we have boundaries when we argue. So mine is like, I'm never going to disrespect him. I'm never going to name call. I'm never going to say hurtful things. So we just have difficult conversations. And sometimes we have difficult conversations every day, like
Yeah.
for a week straight. But I see those as growth opportunities because like we're human. We're not
Yeah.
like,
Absolutely.
just as Pastor Greg says, we're two sinners coming into a marriage.
Yeah.
We have some things that we have to work out. And like, when you become a Christian, you have the sanctification process. And I feel like marriage is like a magnifying glass of
Yeah.
that sanctification process. So we just have to have lots of difficult conversations to just grow and work through things. And, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
That kind of never goes away. You see old people that have
Yeah.
been married
Oh,
for
yeah.
like 50 years. They still argue. They just argue in a different way.
Yeah.
They just kind of
You're constantly growing,
say things at
evolving.
each other.
Yeah.
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 I mean, and I'd say like, as evident as that was with the Valentine's Day incident, it was just I just wasn't recognizing the way that she speaks her love language
Yeah.
and the way that she receives different things. And so I'm still learning it. I mean, even
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
over a year now. And that's something that I've been learning. And I don't know that it'll ever really stop, but
Yeah.
I'm getting better.
That's the fun part
Yeah.
about it,
That's what I was gonna say too. Is like we've had conversations like that before.
Yeah.
Where I am very like physical touch, like we have to be together all the time, and he's more like I like to show love through acts of service. I like to serve you, and that's how I show you that I love you. And I also need words of affirmation. So it's like physical
has,
touch
like-
and
she
words
has, like,
of
3
affirmation.
different love
I need all
languages.
of the love
Yeah.
languages. No, but really those two. And so, there's been a lot of times where I'm like, this is gonna sound horrible. But, I'm like, would you love me if I was like a caterpillar? Like, no, but I'm like,
Serious. I just get up and walk away. I ain't even answering that right now, bro.
no, but I'm
I
just
wish
like,
you were a caterpillar.
yeah. Right now, I wish you were. And then I'm like, yeah, actually, that'd be great because I could stay in your pocket and like.
Yeah, she goes through
No,
the
but
whole
I'm like, do you love me? And he's like, of course I love you. Like, I'm showing you all these things. I'm like, okay, but I want to hear it. And he's like, well, this is just how I show love.
Yeah.
And no fault to him either because he receives it different than what I was giving it to him.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, that's good that's how you receive love, but that's not true for me. And so I think, it's 5 love languages, right?
Yeah.
I feel like in relationships sometimes, especially in a Christian relationship, because it gets talked about a lot, can become really cliche. But I think it's so important and
Yes.
so vital to understand how your
Yeah.
partner, when you're in a mature relationship, receives love, because then there'll never be that point of satisfaction where it's like, okay, like I know that we love each other no matter what. And we've been married 5 years. And I feel like for me personally, and it might be different for you, but I feel like even just now, where I am just now getting to the point where I'm understanding how he gives love and he's understanding how I receive it. And I think there's a point that those two have to come together. Like at a certain point, you have to be like, okay, this is how he shows he loves me. And then he has to be like, okay, it is, but I still need to go
Yeah,
and
it's a
tell her I love her,
compromise.
or I still need to like put my hands on it. So like,
Yeah.
I feel like we're just even now, I'm getting to that point where I'm understanding how he shows it, but also I feel like I'm receiving it in a whole new way. And so I completely agree. That's never anything that you'll ever really figure out. Like it's
Yeah.
just a
Oh, yeah.
process,
Yeah.
And I don't even think that they actually have to align the way that you want to receive love versus the way that you want to give love. Just because if I like, touch doesn't mean that that's my preferred method of giving out love. is
Right.
touch,
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's almost a balance between the way
Yeah.
you receive, the way you give, the way that she receives, and the
Yeah.
way that she gives.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we definitely like going into marriage, a lot of people have the misconception that like, oh, you're going to go into this marriage and you're going to have an amazing time and this person's going to serve you and you're going to do all the fun things. But really, you're going into a marriage to serve that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to balance out like, okay, this is how he likes to be loved. So I have to, like, his is words of affirmation. Mine is like, I'm horrible at words of affirmation because I'm like, let me show you quality time,
Yeah.
you know, let me spend time with you, let me serve you. And so I have to remind myself, oh, let me write him a note, you know, put it in his
Yeah.
car or something and just
the
do
effort
that.
to do
yeah,
it, yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I definitely try to let her know that I've received that. Like, even she wasn't here one day and she left me a little note and I still took a picture and I was like, oh, heart emoji. Thank you so much. you know?
Yeah.
Showing appreciation for when she does go out
Yeah.
of the way. Because I know that's not the way that she wants to show
Mm-hmm.
her love to me, but she's doing it because she wants to make sure that I feel it. You know?
Yeah.
Where I may not feel it that much just sitting and talking.
Yeah.
You know? So.
I could
Yeah.
talk for days.
Yeah, yeah. And so, you're dating and, in that process, you're trying to figure out if is he right for me? Is she right for me? But you also got to think, am I right for them? Am I willing to compromise some things for them?
That's
Am
good,
I
yeah.
able, so, because we're always in the mindset of, okay, or are they right for me?
Yeah.
Or do they need to change these things around? But we have to turn the mirror around. Okay,
Yeah.
am I doing the same thing? Am I compromising? Am I meeting their needs?
Yeah, that's
and things like that.
Yeah, so I see things like you got to be equally yoked. That is so important. And I decided for myself I wanted someone who served in church and was all about Jesus, but I can't ask that of somebody if I'm not doing that too.
Yeah.
So it's a two-way street. You can't ask something like, oh, I want you to be this, this, and this, but if you're not that,
Yeah.
then you can't even ask that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So look, just to end it real quick, if you had 3 tips to give to a teenager, as they're dating,
Or
maybe
young adult,
maybe they're single right now, and but they will be dating, and they're watching, 3 tips of advice that you would give to them.
Okay. I think one would be, you need to set your foundation and set your non-negotiables now.
Yeah.
You can't rely on the other person. You have to figure out who you are, what you want, and stay firm and true to that. So that would be so important for me.
Why don't you even say, like, even write those down and make it really concrete,
Yeah, I did a lot of journaling and writing a lot of things down as far as dating.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. I don't know. That kind of, that's a tough
Put you on
one,
the
know?
spot.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'll say, as far as purity goes, something for me was, I grew up and I didn't have that as an example. I didn't know people even did that anymore. So when I came back to Jesus, I had my encounter and I fully came back to Jesus. I was like, oh, maybe I should be pure now. Like, and so I kind of set this like, I'll be pure until, but then I stopped focusing on that and I started focusing solely on my relationship with Jesus. And then once I fully was like, I know Jesus.
Yeah.
I feel Jesus. I feel his love for me. And so it became more about, I don't want to break his heart because that's
Yeah.
going to break his heart if I do that.
Yeah.
So it became more about God and less about, oh, I shouldn't do this because it's bad.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
So,
And I would say another thing, too, now you said that, I got to thinking of it, was we did Bible studies and we prayed together.
yeah.
That,
That's good advice.
Keeping Christ in the center. Yeah.
I think, I don't know, I can't remember if it was the start of it, but like I went out and I got us both the book.
That was the second day you met me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the first time that I actually
Yeah.
walked
Wow.
inside for a moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was the 40 Days Rick Warren. My goodness, I can't think of the name. But yeah, we went through the 40 days together and we,
Wow.
we started praying together, doing Bible studies,
Through
even
Zoom.
video through Zoom.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Doing
Yeah.
Bible studies
Yeah.
together. And so I think that was super important because there was so many topics, so much discussion to be had
Yeah.
with the Bible studies. And so it's like, well, what do you really think about this? How does it affect
Yeah.
your life?
Yeah, and you learn about their character and who they are as a person. And yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, I think we've all heard the statistics on, those who pray together,
Yeah.
kind of stay together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
That's cool. This has been cool for me, because, okay, we've been married 5 years, but we got married at 19. And so a lot of the boundaries that were set for us were set by parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents. And so you guys are you had to set your own boundaries.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a whole
And
different.
so I think it's just cool. It's just a cool perspective to hear.
Yeah,
This has been awesome.
And really, this is good, like for a teenager. This is good for a young
Yeah.
adult, or who is like, if you're dating, like
Just
this
dating.
is good for you. But I just want to thank you guys for your sharing your experience,
Yeah.
sharing your stories, being vulnerable, being an open at Last House. I think it's going to be very impactful. But thank you guys for your time
Yeah,
tonight.
of
Yeah.
course. Of course.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having us.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks for
Thanks.
having us.